Hello again, guys. Thank you so much for coming back. One of the first things we need to do for our 1940 Chevy pickup resto mod project is we need to refurbish and repurpose and modify, let's say, this 1990 Camaro rear axle. Once again, this is a posi track model, rotors for brakes, 327 gears, should be about perfect in width, but we have a lot to take off of it and a lot to replace and a lot to fix up. So let's get going. One thing on this axle I don't understand is we have a rubber soft line here, which is fine, but on the other side we have the steel line, which looks factory. You know, it has the spring-like shield around it anyway, but that steel line is going directly to the caliper on this side, so I'm not really sure why. But I had my parts guy order me 2 right-hand hoses, and I will probably weld on another bracket and just make it both float. If there's a problem with that, then I guess we'll find out about it. But I really don't know what's going on with that. But I'm going to start with taking our calipers off. So what I've done here is I have opened up the entire proverbial can of worms by choosing this axle, which is par for the course for me, honestly. So the hearsay, I've already shared this with you, the hearsay on this axle was that it was a 90 Camaro axle. And it very well, it could be. That hasn't been disproven yet. However, all of the brake parts that my parts store got for this thing, there was only one option for rear calipers, and so the rest of the brake parts followed suit. You know, they were all wrong. It was a much more complicated caliper. The adjustment brackets and everything, the self adjusters. So I just got back from taking all of that back. And we got to looking. There is no other option for a 90 Camaro. He looked for Firebird, Trans Am as well. Wasn't coming up with anything. He started getting newer. I brought in one of my calipers. I don't have either one here. Oh yeah, I do. I brought in a caliper, and he wasn't finding anything. They were looking for newer models because of how this screw-in piston is. You know, they were thinking that was kind of a later feature. So while I was sitting there and they were struggling to find something, and they're good parts guys, I got on Rockauto on my phone and I went back, and I went to 85, and I got as far back as 85, and lo and behold, there was this caliper, minus the bracket with the counterweight or whatever, and that bracket, but the caliper was the same, and they were left and right interchangeable. So he's going to order 2 of those, but that's a problem because in 85 anyway, there was no Borg Warner 9-volt, at least that we can see. So I have one of 2 problems. Either A, someone took a 90-ish rear axle and and fit much older calipers on them, which is unlikely, or somewhere in a year, in an option, in factory just trying to get rid of parts, somewhere in there, they were using old style calipers on the newer 9-bolt Borg Warner. So I'm going to take all my information with me home tonight once again. I haven't needed to up till now, just sat down and done a lot of research looking into year by year what options were available. I'm hoping I will find something that will give me a clue as to why we have this style on this 9-bolt. Because I don't know. It doesn't really matter. I think we can piece it together either way. But I would sure like to know what we have. If for no other reason than to tell the owner in the future when you need parts, this is what this is. So we'll see. That's going to be difficult. Should really stand up and get the right tools. Got some oil. Didn't look like water came out of it. Here's a look inside for you guys. I did find stampings on it, and it is 327 gear ratio. Can't seem to find it now. And then I kind of assume that this thing's been opened up in the past. Man, where was that? Obviously we have silicone around it, but we have yellow paint and engraving on it. Can't really make sense of it at the moment. I think it says 986 and then a 28, and then the pinion also has yellow paint on it. So I don't know if that means hopefully that means a pro was in here messing around on it. Well, I can't seem to find the stamping right now, but kind of hard to do all this with one hand. Huh. Anyway, I've got to make a decision. Am I going to go through the whole thing? Probably the better thing to do, at least take it open and take a little peek on the inside. But anyway, that's what that's looking like. So I think we've got it figured out. I spent some time on the phone just because I couldn't wait, going through parts breakdowns year by year of Camaro, and the first use of a 9-bolt was in 87, and then on for a few years. I don't know how long they offered that. The first use of these calipers was in, well, I don't know, 85 I happened to look at. But the first time they meet up, these calipers with a 9-bolt, is in 87. 88, they were already offering the next style of caliper that we already had for a 90. When we were assuming this is a 90. So, this has got to be either 87 or 88. Our rotors are 10.5. which denotes those calipers are, I think that denotes those calipers in particular, and then 11.5s are a little bigger, went with the updated style. So very short window of this combination of axle. I'm going to continue on tearing down, cutting off, so on and so forth, so we can get it cleaned up. Seems like there was something else I was going to say. Must not have been too important. Oh yeah, that just goes to show you it's a very important lesson that I still need to learn, apparently, and be reminded of, that when you buy something from a guy who bought it from another guy who says it was something in particular, before you go ordering parts, you may want to dig into it and confirm, you know. I had nothing to go on. I just assumed, and created a lot of extra work for everyone. So, lesson learned once again. Alright, let's make this articulate. Alright, let's make this articulate this time. We are converting our rear axle from 1940 to 50 years newer, basically. By some very convenient happenstance, the outer diameter of the rear axle housing is basically identical to the late 80s Borg Warner one. So, with the intention, with the knowledge, with the purpose of retaining our original suspension, but going to a much newer drivetrain, we are going to retain the original cast spring mounts. That way, not only is it very convenient to just bolt up the original springs, I don't have to weld a new pad on the rear axle. I can also very conveniently bolt on the overload springs. Not that this guy would ever need it, but you know, maybe he wants to decide to go cross country. I know they have kids in California, maybe they want to drive there, pull a little trailer, load up the bed, you know, with contraband going into California, because it's like going to Cuba these days. I don't know. Now, I didn't shoot a picture, but I can if I really need to, of the 40 rear axle. But on the bottom side, I think it's the bottom side. Pretty sure it's the bottom side. Doesn't matter. At the factory, they riveted 3/8 by 1 inch bar stock curved to fit the axle housing, and it goes in this slot, so it's kind of a keyway, and there's grease zerks on the other side, the top side, I guess, and that allowed a little bit of movement despite the fact that you have a torque tube. This thing could still move just a little bit. Now, we don't need it to move, we don't want it to move, so we can tighten that up a little bit in our manufacturing process. So instead of welding a spring pad, just a generic pad, what we are going to do is form new bar stock to this groove and weld that in, and then that'll provide our solid connection to our to our axle tube, and actually what we can do is form this and weld it in so that these don't move at all. There'll be a direct fit. There won't be any gap, and that will provide the stability since we really don't want it to move anymore. So I am going to heat these up with the Rosebud. This is the plan anyway. And I have a socket that is very close to the right size. I was going to turn down a piece of pipe or a piece of bar stock, but I found that was very, very close to the right size. And so I'm just going to use this piece of sheet metal and try that to shim it out a little bit. And we will hammer it home and see how it turns out. Up. Well, what the H is going on here? Oh, such foul language, I'm sorry. Let me clear off enough junk in order to use our little roller here. So this will make perfect sense to you once you see them installed, obviously, but the Camaro axle, once I got all the junk off, ends up being an 1/8 of an inch outer diameter smaller than our 40 Chevy axle. So I've got some 1/16 of an inch, I believe that's 16 gauge, sheet metal that I made basically some shims out of. And we are going to roll these just so it's a little more convenient to install. And see how that works. Okay, well, with my needle scaler, DA sander, wire brush, scour pad, scuff pad, lots of brake clean, I have gone over this thing and scrubbed it, and it's looking halfway better. We'll continue to clean it off, wipe it down before we paint it. However, I'm going to pause that. Now, I want to get the cleaning and the painting done on the main body of this, and then I'm going to remove axles, backing plates, and cover. Clean those up separate, paint those separate, and then bolt them back on. But while we're cleaning and painting, I want to keep this thing sealed up as much as possible, because while I am going to pull the axles and do seals, and I might as well do the bearings, those bearings while I'm there, everything else honestly is looking great. We can tell it's been gone through at some point, and there's nothing looks wrong with it on the inside. So if down the road the guy develops, say the pinion starts leaking or whatever, absolutely I tear it down for him and do it, and it'd be my responsibility. So anyway, I think I am going to leave it as it is, other than pulling the axles and doing what I just said. Now, our 40 Chevy mounts could pivot on the axle tube just a little bit, and we are not interested in that this time around, right? We need a solid connection, and so these things that I made up are going to be welded solid to the axle tube. So I've got them lined out where they need to be centered. 43 inches on center will match the springs and the frame. for the pickup. I do not have a hot enough welder for me to be comfortable. I could get it to work and it would probably be just fine, but we don't need the guy flooring it and his axle tries to do a somersault, right? So I'm gonna load this up in the old pick 'em up truck and run to dad-in-law's, burn these on real quick, and I can only do, that's why I did the center, burn it in there real good, and then on the very ends. Nothing along the sides can be welded. So I'm gonna do that, and then I'll be right back. We no longer have a torque tube drive line, and we want this thing to stay at the angle that we set it at. So how I am accomplishing that while using these cast pieces all depends on where the end of my lugs is and the weld, essentially. So going off these tabs, which that gives our pinion angle a couple of degrees, and we can play around with that yet, but I'm using that as my center. And on these caps, not sure if you can see it, there is a little X that is lined up perfectly with the apex of this top piece. So, and I should really be using the other one, I think this is the other side, but it doesn't matter. If I line that X up perfectly with this flat spot, with this notch in here, that'll give my axle tube the desired angle. And so now I need to make sure this is pressed down all the way, and my flat spots here and here should be right up against the weld or the end of the material of the lugs. If it is, this thing will not rotate, or the axle will not rotate within these clamshells. So that's what I got to do now on this one. This backside weld needs to be cut down, or ground down. Looks like about 1/8 of an inch or so, and I will re-weld. I know you can't see it, but I can re-weld farther up the material and get that adjustment. So I'm going to be playing around with this nonsense for a little bit, and once I have that, then we can start refinishing all of this. Okay, I was going to do one of these first and then bring you along for the second one. Fortunately, I may have taken a set of hardware home, so we're just going to do one together. Now these have an angle to them to match the angle of the leaf springs, and these are a little snug, which is what we want. Okay. That's pretty good. Is this the right one? I don't think that's the right one. I definitely don't think that's the right one. Okay. Putting stainless bolts in it. And now, because of how it still is, you know, its basic appearance, I'm going to throw some Duplicolor Rust Fix on this. Just because I'm doing all this, just because we've got a mechanical assembly, we still have bearings in there, I'm not replacing. I just don't want any sort of media getting inside of this thing. tearing up everything. So hopefully this will be a little bit of insurance against any of this being a problem in the future. And then tomorrow first thing we'll come in and we will throw some paint on this. After we do that, I will tear off, as I've stated already. I know, I keep repeating myself. Axles and backing plates. I'm going to be using Eastwood's Extreme Chassis Black. Never used this product before. It is a satin, which I like. I personally do not care for bright glossy underpinnings, you know what I mean. I've read some good things about it. It can go over bare metal, it can go over primer. I've read reviews that guys have good luck with it over both. They both hold up equally well. So we're going to give it a shot. I like that it's sprayable, doesn't need to be mixed with anything. It's just pour it out of the can into the gun and you go. I'm going to be putting this pretty much on the entire project, on the chassis. So rear axle and springs will both get this. Probably should take the nuts off. Just a thought. You go to replace these bearings and seals. So this is the same tapered roller bearing that the Olds Cutlass used that we went through not too long ago. And this keeper is a press fit, and you've got to basically you drill it out to where it's weak in that spot. And then you split it. I like to do that. I use the cutting wheel on the grinder next to get the bearing off. That is still tight, despite the fact that we got the keeper off of there. Obviously, the inner race is still tight on the axle. So I like to go very carefully with the cutting wheel. And first I get the bearings out of there, and then all that's left. Why don't we just do it? It's just easier to show you. Kind of makes a mess, as expected, but better that than messing up an axle. Okay, we're down to our inner race. So now I'm just going to keep slicing, but not go so far as to get into the axle. We'll give that a shot. Get that supported on the table, and then we're going to try to break this apart. There we go. Seal can come off. Now, one oddity of this particular rear end is that it lists two different seals. So, not sure what's going on there. This was, I think this is left. I don't know. Strange. Here we have one installed, and we'll do the next one together. You can see this is all just kind of a rubber coated seal on the right side. I think that's right, yeah. And then on the left side, completely different seal. Don't know why. Also rebuilding a Rochester 2-jet over there for a gent. Replating, CAD plating it at the moment. So hopefully it'll look somewhat like that when we're all done. So got all my little parts. I'll show you all this in a bit. Zinc plating them at the moment, and then we'll throw them in the yellow CAD. It was interesting, the bearings I took off of this thing were made in Australia. I don't think I have ever seen that before. I'm going to put a little lube on here. Okay, our seal facing inward. Got our retainer plate on there, obviously. And then again, this is set 9 in a Timken. And should go that way. This is the outer race that goes into the axle tube. There. And our keeper. here's the CAD plating, coating our steel parts with zinc, basically. Got our choke rod, throttle rod, another piece of the choke there, and then here's some parts that we've done already. Working up to the main feature. Oh. Sorry about the crickets. All it takes is one unruly, hardier than usual little fella, and right outside the door, you know, and I can't do anything about it. I've sprayed inside and outside, and this is what I get for my trouble. But anyway, we are going to reassemble everything. Brake backing plates are symmetrical. They're just on opposite sides of the axle, so I got to be sure to get that correct. Two things that annoy me to no end in a shop: when a bird gets in and is constantly flying around, and crickets. Makes me want to go on a brake cleaner rampage, you know. Anyway. I am making a mess that is just kind of hard to believe. New bottle of Permatex. And apparently I can't be trusted with it. Oh man. And then that gets all over your fresh paint, you know. You know how that is? Alright. So our which way? That's the ring. That's the center bolt on the bottom. Okay. Might want a gasket. Just a thought. Something like that. Just thinking out loud here. These rotors are just your standard aftermarket OE replacement fare. Should not really need anything more than that. Make sure they're clean for a guy. They got a nice crosshatch on them. You know, when I bought these calipers online, the pictures showed none of the brackets or anything that are connected to them, just a bare caliper. So it was kind of a nice surprise when I opened up the boxes, and lo and behold, we had all of the mechanisms. Now these are new Geon. I don't know, they're remanned in Mexico. And I got Raybestos rotors and pads. So kind of the same story there, I think. Ought to work just fine. You'll notice I have the one-sided rubber hose installed already. that going. Well, what'd you fall off of? What do you think you're doing? Gee. The nerve. Alright. Try this again. You go under there. They were all greased up and ready too. See, now that inner pad just doesn't always want to play nice. That's against that. Should it be against that, or should it be over that? Ah, it should be over that. There we go. Now you get in that, through that slot and over there, and you do the same. Alrighty then. I think brake lines are next. Okay, now these I bought from Inline Tube, if you can see that. Inline Tube. Probably eBay purchase if I had to guess, but they came directly from them. So, if a guy had to make a guess, he would say this one goes here somehow. Doesn't look quite right yet, because I'm trying to get to that. No. I should put the center hose on. And then that's got to hook around to our caliper. Now they have this false brass, looks like a hose end. Basically the same end as on this soft line there on the caliper. But it accepts your flare fitting for your solid line. Again, I have no idea why they chose to do it this way. Budget cuts in the 80s, you know, getting away with one hose is... One thing I have neglected up to this point is my bracket for the hose. So this would have gone on the spring mount, the coil spring mount welded here, you know, just with like a sheet metal screw basically. So I'm going to have to figure that out. You know, I would like to just put a bolt through there. But that's got my bolt going up into the top part holding this clamshell affair together. Now that's not the end of the world actually if I don't have that, because our main U-bolts actually are really what provide our clamping force on this thing in the end. I think the 5/16 bolts are just there to hold it all together, you know. But I really need to get my center hose on, and so I can judge distances here a little bit better, because that's made to get clipped there. Let's just do that. So this is my stock hose for the Camaro, you know. This is the stock hose for this original axle for this pickup. Now this would have been much farther to the right hand side. almost clear over by the frame where it teed off. And this is almost in the center, actually hugging the left side quite a bit more. So I originally thought maybe I could adapt threads and just put the two together, but that'd kind of look ungainly and we'd have a whole lot of extra hose, you know. So for now, I'm going to put this stock one on here, and then I bought a metric to, I think this is a 12 M12 thread flare fitting to a standard 3/16 brake line fitting adapter. So I'm going to run with that for now. If this provides us enough travel to get to the pickup frame somewhere to re-weld a new hanger, that's probably what we'll just stick with. Otherwise, we may have to figure out an extra bit of hose or something else. I don't know yet. We'll get there. We're working on it, right? So I think this thing was at an angle. I really, really do. And I'm just going to play around and see if I can get our lines to cooperate. Now obviously we're trying to get this line to do some crazy things that it never did before. Oh, I am real smooth guy loosening this thing. Now you're in a world of hurt. Ugh. I might have to take the spring out of here. Let's just take the spring out. Had it all set. You get all cocky and you get messed up. Okay. This goes this way. That goes over. This goes under. Inside, outside, upside down. Well, now you can see how that fitting goes on. Unless my shoulders and arms are blocking the camera as usual. You know. It's all in a day's work. We're on our way to tight. Okay, so right in here, obviously all of this is different, and we all got all kinds of swoops and bends and things that are not according to what we need anymore. So I'm going to straighten that out. We may actually need more forward movement on this line to get around this. So we'll go like that. You know, I don't have any metric flaring tools or anything, so and then it was obviously hooked way back there. So can a guy just kind of unbend those a little bit, and maybe we can make them look a whole lot neater when we're done here. Open our clip up somewhat, take our plug off. I don't know if you can even see that anymore. Where are we at? Okay. Looks like it needs, let's just do that so it's all the way back. Needs to go that way. And let's start it in there if I can. Getting needs to be up. On too much of a swoopy angle here. The right side one's fighting me, of course, because it's no longer correct either. Alright. Let's just take this out and we are going to tweak it like that. Okay, so if we do that, kind of smush her down a little, kind of encourage that to do that, straighten that out. We'll have room for U-bolts. You know, this is all kind of crazy. It looked crazy even when it was using it for its intended purpose, but I think it's going to work. I have more clips for this. I just need to work on that end, getting that all together. So I've decided what I really need to do is do a little modification here. This bracket has two keyed portions, you know, as brake lines, brake hoses often do. It's got two keyed portions, and so it makes it very inconvenient, makes it backwards. You know, a guy would have to twist this hose up 180 degrees if he wanted to make something different work, or it's just backwards and it wouldn't work, right? So I really need to get it in the orientation that it was, which that is backwards, so that had to have come in from here, something like that. Okay, does that make sense? That would have been like that. Doesn't matter, it's gonna be just peachy by the time we're done with it. I am going to slice this off, make a bracket to weld on the axle tube, and join up with this on this side, and that'll get me where I need to be, the least inconvenience. Doing this any other way is just really going to get me into a realm I don't want to be in, right? So I'm going to take some measurements, and maybe I'll even finish out the day at my home shop there, coming up with something and welding it up. So we'll bring it back and put her on. The human brain can be a marvel sometimes. I marked my spot where I want my bracket, took my knife and I was scraping paint out of the hole to weld it, set it on top of my welder, and then I spent the next 10 minutes looking for what I did with it. So that was cool. I almost forgot my plates and badges here. And there. And our serial number and gear ratio and everything here. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Well, guys, I think that's going to do it for this video. I think it was probably long enough just to get this thing rolling. Again, a $200 rear axle, and hopefully it provides everything that we want to accomplish for a very low price. Certainly a bit of labor, a little bit of modification, a little bit of parts, but we're still coming, you know, to buy this brand new, we're coming way in under the budget, maybe 25% of what a new one would cost. I really haven't run the numbers completely to see, but I'm guessing we probably put another maybe 300-ish into parts. Not 100% sure. So right there in the axle and the parts, we're at 1/10 of the cost of a new one roughly, and then the labor to get it the rest of the way. So you know how these things go, but hopefully this will answer every question that we had. I am already deep within the process of rebuilding 6 sets of leaf springs, starting with the rears, so we can get this bolted up to the frame, make sure that fits, check our pinion angle, and then we can make the engine and transmission match what we have going on here. I really don't think I need to hang the front axle on. Everything there is going to be the same as it was, so we really shouldn't run into any problems there, other than possibly interference issues with the engine, but it really shouldn't be an issue, honestly. I have all new U-bolts to go on here, and little odds and ends. Need to get oil, need to get a vent. I've got bolts and straps, a kit at the parts store waiting on me. Other than that, oh, and I bought universal parking brake cables. So I'm going to see if we can go from these calipers to the stock hangers on the frame, and then go to the possibly to the factory parking brake lever. There's a lot of options out there for mounting something on the transmission, an automatic transmission. So we'll just see what we have to do, but you can be rest assured I am going to bring you along every step of the way, and we are going to enjoy all the fun and excitement together. So there you go, guys. Thank you so much for coming along and joining me. We've got the 1987. I started out saying this was a 90. The 1987 Camaro rear end going in the 40 Chevy pickup. We'll see you on the next one. God bless you. Bye-bye. What's next? I think poisoning your work environment makes the most sense, right? I mean, we might as well be healthy about it. Oh, that one was aimed right at me. Didn't get me. It's okay. There we go. Fog her up. You just keep chirping, boy.